and to be hosted by her. She had her apartment ready, she looked beautiful, and she had a little lunch prepared for us, all on her own. Truly an extraordinary individual. Just a little background before we get into a video is that the Algins, what impresses me about them is that they didn't grow up in the truth. You know, they got the truth later on in life. And in 1961, they were baptized, so or it might be 62. And so when we think about their life, it's really pretty extraordinary. Both their sons went to Bethel in 1972 and 1974. That's a long time ago. You think about how long their family has been serving in full-time and special full-time service. It truly is extraordinary. But what's most extraordinary about this couple, George, who recently passed not too long ago, and Anne, is that their special full-time service began while they were in their 40s. So in your 40s, that sounds old, doesn't it? For some of us. Most of us it doesn't, but for young ones especially, 40 sounds old. But imagine spending the next half of a century in special full-time service. And could you imagine that? Getting that privilege in your 40s and then spending nearly a half century of the rest of your life in full-time service and being able to truly say that the last half century of my life was my best. Well, let's listen to Sister Algin as she tells a little bit about her story, where she came from, and how they progressed in the truth.
I did not think of pioneering until it's usually the parents that encourage the kids, but here the kids sat me down and showed me where I could do better. And anytime we could do better, we grabbed it. George was the first one to get the truth through his uncle, who was a witness. It was too hard for him to study in his own home where his wife would be heckling him. He was quite, I think, embarrassed for me. And he told the brother, I think if I could study at your home, it would be better. And that was agreed on. He would take the magazines and ask, what else you got? So through reading and through the witness work that was done in the business territory, George just got the truth in his heart. I just couldn't believe it. I said, what do you want to do that for? I was far from knowing how George was appreciating something that I hadn't any knowledge of or wanted to know anything. When he went on his study at night, I would say, what's the matter with him? He's missing this show we used to watch together. And I didn't know what precious things he was learning. So it was time for me to go to bed. Before I got to bed, evidently my little boy of 2 years old, for some reason, exchanged the reading material that we had on night tables. I think they called it night table. And so I reached out for my Reader's Digest, and I said, what is this? And it was a booklet that came from George's side, which he had been given by his Bible teacher, and it was called Hope for the Dead. Well, my grandmother had just died, and I was quite depressed over that. And I opened it and said, all right, I'll read this. And in 2 minutes, my eyes opened up, and I said, what? Hell doesn't, Sheol doesn't mean hell? There is no hell? And it was explained so nicely that to this day, when I'm making the bed, I'll open up to that paragraph and think fondly of the day that I found the truth through the literature that my little boy placed on the side of my night table. Okay, I couldn't wait to tell him. I thought he didn't know this. This was a whole thing about hell. Actually, he had been studying that in the chapter of the book. And so that was interesting. But I said, George, come here. And I showed him the booklet as if nobody in the world ever found this before. And I had it underlined. I said, do you see this? Well, this is the truth. Just notice these points here. Well, we have to go to all the meetings. What you say you have meetings, we'll go to them all. We must, no matter what happens. And so I believe I got all of that, of course, from Jehovah, but it was because of the backlog of information that my husband was very gently giving me. So I thank him for that. I remember that our family immediately had a family study. George is 2 years old. We gave him something to say, 2 words, pet them. The question was, what did the animals let them do? And George would be one that was in our little study, and he'd raise his hand and say, pet them. So I think, in my recollection, that we incorporated a lot of family togetherness right away. In fact, my oldest son, Edward, says we grew up together, and he means we grew up in the truth, because when we would have something to say, we would share it with them, and thankfully they would add to it and say, right, Dad, I think you're right, we should do that. So that's my remembrance of how we applied the truth, and I think we applied it quite soon. We would sit at the table at night and tell the experiences we had in our pioneering. George didn't want to be the only one. Of course, he was supporting us, but he wanted to pioneer too. So he